You want me to put that on my Tudor?
The Parasitic Poisonousness. Hello, I'm hgtudor. The fallout continues from the allegation that King Charles and the Princess of Wales are the royal racists. The improbably named plastic-faced, weaselly lickspittle lieutenant, Omid Scobie, did his best to backtrack, but nobody is convinced. His explanations of a translation error simply do not stack up. Furthermore, the relevant translator, who has no skin in the game in terms of who she supports, simply explained, "I translate what's in front of me. The manuscript contained the names." This demonstrates that Scobie sent the material either direct or more likely through his agent or publisher, which contained the names, and therefore to suggest that it didn't was not correct. Of course, this is not the first time that Omid Scobie has told a porky pie. He did so in relation to his extent of the collaboration with this one's wife. In relation to finding freedom, he's done so with regard to his use of private jets. He's done so with regard to his age. He's done so with regard to the use of cosmetic surgery. He is an individual that regularly does not talk the truth. This has been picked up on, of course. He has been roundly lambasted in the media as a consequence of his status as a lieutenant of the Sussexes. Furthermore, their continuing silence with regard to this issue naturally speaks volumes. This has resulted in Scobie coming under attack himself, and Julie Burchill writes in The Spectator as follows. "I don't remember exactly when I first read about the ancient courtier role of groom of the stool, but it's a fascinating business. Here's Wikipedia to explain. The groom of the stool was the most intimate of an English monarch's courtiers, responsible for assisting in excretion. The physical intimacy of the role naturally led to his becoming a man in whom much confidence was placed by his royal master, and with whom many royal secrets were shared as a matter of course. It is a matter of some debate as to whether the duties included cleaning the king's anus, but the groom is known to have been responsible for supplying a bowl, water, and towels, and also for monitoring the king's diet and bowel movements. But I do remember thinking, oh, so that's what a groom of the stool looks like on first seeing a photograph of Omid Scobie. It's hard to imagine after reading his alleged book, Finding Freedom, that anyone has ever fulfilled the fundamental function of groom of the stool as fulsomely as him. Despite duchessy disavowals of collaboration, Scobie's Finding Freedom had the "see how I suffer" stamp of this one's wife expensively shod hoof all over it. Amongst other things, we learned that this paragon's willingness to help others and her drive to excel meant she was often deemed fake by classmates at school who felt it was impossible for anyone to be that perfect. You have permission to vomit. And that this one's wife immediately impressed Harry with her packing skills. She has always taken pride in being a great packer, going as far as layering dryer sheets in between her clothes to keep them smelling fresh. All of this, of course, is the toadying of the lieutenant in order to portray this one's wife in a glittering manner. The stench of lickspittle hagiography comes through strongly. When this one's wife's excommunications secretary, Jason Knorf, tested under oath that he and the Duchess discussed the ghastly tome on a routine basis before its publication, no one was in the least surprised. In a very modern twist on the old never explain, never complain mantra of the Windsors, always complain, always explain why everyone except you is such a horrid bully, became the Sussex strapline, soon to be elaborated on in Harry's wretched autobiography, Spare. Finding Freedom's co-author, Carolyn Durand, appears to have decided that a period of silent penance might be the best way to make up to the world for inflicting such bilge on it. But Scobie is made of stronger stuff, although if I was him I wouldn't put such a flagrantly inflammable face anywhere near a naked flame. He has kept soldiering on with his uphill journey of making the Duchess of Sussex and her grabdication seem like Joan of Arc if she was a C-list actress famous for marrying a rich man. Scobie's new book, Bell Endgame, has already been in the news due to its general peevishness. Once more, every member of the royal family except this one's wife and Harry are beastly, and its specific reveal of the royal racist, which has seen one become two. The smell of burning bridges will outdo any of the scented candles in a certain Monty shitshow mansion this festive season, one imagines. It is being driven home mercilessly to the baffled, tethered prince that despite the recent hints of a reconciliation, he can never go home again. It's hard to work out who is the most pitiable of the three principal players in this shabby cavalcade. This one's wife has used the very real evils of racism and misogyny to conceal her true mission. Ceaseless promotion of herself to a level of sainthood, or at least Oprahhood. Pausing there, this, of course, is driven by her narcissism's facade management, the way that she believes that she is wonderful and the world ought to see that, and that she is the victim, that she is the one that is done too horribly by other individuals. There is also the massively privileged and profoundly dim man who has given her a world platform. He's also a disgrace, but on balance, the sheer parasitic poisonousness of Scobie wins him the top spot. Writers have often wanted to warm themselves on the furnace of fame and glamour. Truman Capote hung out with Marilyn Monroe. Rex Reed went on bar crawls with Ava Gardner. In these cultural dog days, the nearest we get to such a union is a puppet-faced poltroon having his strings pulled by Princess Pinocchio, to give her Piers Morgan's amusing nomenclature. Diana had Andrew Morton, Charles had Anthony Holden and Jonathan Dimbleby. This one's wife has a hack from Heat, who seems to lie about his age, among other things. We truly get the chroniclers we deserve, though I draw the line at saying Scobie has the face he deserves, as no one could have committed so much wrongdoing in the space of a mere 42 years. And now, Morgan himself has stepped in, like Red Adair in reverse, to chuck fuel on the fire by naming the alleged racist on television, thus guaranteeing a very sad Yuletide indeed for poor befuddled Prince Harry, whose chance of being welcomed back to the bosom of his family seems unlikely. Will Has reflects sadly, as he smokes a blunt in the chicken coop, that, whereas his ancestor gave up a throne for an American divorcee, he has given up thrice weekly visits to Knockers nightclub, a sacrifice which seems increasingly pointless if the sour face on him in public outings is anything to go by. For what shall it profit a man if he shall gain up to 22 toilets and lose his own soul? As for Scobie, despised by his fellow journalists and abandoned by his puppet master, it seems increasingly likely that it is Bell End game for him, rather than the House of Sussex. Still, with his CV, he can always find an opening grooming stools for a living. A scathing article about Scobie and, of course, this one's wife, which will amount to challenge fuel, summing up very neatly the views that are held of both this one's wife and her shabby lieutenant, Omid Scobie. It is demonstrative of the way that they are both seen. And naturally, this one's wife is maintaining a silence in regard to all of this, because silence allows her to assert control by staying in a position of withdrawal, and she's not going to help out Scobie. he can go under the bus, because once again she demonstrates the complete absence of emotional empathy, that notwithstanding the fact that he has been brown-nosing her for years, that he now has a perma-brown stripe on the bridge of his nose as a consequence of wedging his protuberance so far up her yitter that he is unable to breathe, she doesn't give a rat's ass about him. He is utterly dispensable as a non-intimate secondary source, and he will be placed on the shelf and may possibly also be disengaged from as a consequence of the fact that her narcissism deems it appropriate to put distance between her and him. Thus, the pair of them will continue to receive scathing observations such as that of Julie Burchill. This one's wife will remain in a position of retreat, whilst Scobie will wonder what price is loyalty. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.